Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Friday, October 17th, 2014. And this is Live Talk. I'm Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Kip Stube.
And tonight on Studio 7 Live Talk, we are talking about the First Lady, Grace Mugabe's Meet the People tour, which ended today in Marondera, the capital city of Mashonaland East Province.
To join the discussion, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077, and we'll call you back.
And as usual, Live Talk goes out to Zimbabwe on our 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930-5940 and 15455 kilohertz shortwave, Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m.
And on the internet, you can find us at www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voaindebele.com, and www.voashona.com.
Pandashika panap. Ndafamba 8 provinces. This is the 9th province. Muno ndiri kunzwa kuti demoni refactionalism ndo marinotangira. Demoni irori richibuda richienda kumwe. Zvino ndati kubva nhasi demoni irori ngaripere. Kana murimo marinobikwa ngaripere. Zvataenda through baba neni nemhuri zvakaoma. Vamwe vari kuti amai mukutaura nyaya yefactionalism. Musanetseka nemayouth. Moment of truth ichasvika very soon. Ndati vane dzimba dzemagirazi musakande matombo. Nokuti iye zvino izvi factionalism kana iripo vanhu vanoshandiswa. Asi kune munhu wani ari kushandisa vanhu iye. Ndiye manje akasateerera zvatiri kutaura kuti pasi nefactionalism akachai-stop. Ndati the moment of truth ichasvika. Mayuthi vakatombondikwenya vakati amai ngatiregei kuita zvemadimikira. Ari kuita nyaya yefactionalism. Ivo vacho vari kutumwa ngavatitaure kuti vari kutumwa nani. Timuyendere manje fair. Ndakati aiwa chimbomirai. Ndakati nini baba ndakati kuna baba baby dumping munoiziva here zvikanzi ndikati munhu iye ari kutungamira factionalism toda kuti muite baby dumping imimi mukasamudhamba isusu tichamudhamba.
Lokho kade kukhulunywa abantu kacangela ukuthi kukhona isivinyelane esikhona phakathi kuka uSikazi Grace Mugabe le faction yabo Professor Moyo labo Mnangagwa kukhanya ngani kukhona, kodwa mina kukhanya ngani kuliqiniso, kodwa angiboni ngani kufanele kusethuse kangako ngoba lokhu kuhambelana le Cholocho agreement le eyenza ukuthi uProfessor Jonathan Moyo akaphume kuZANU.
Firstly, there is no doubt that the remarks by Grace Mugabe were aimed at the Vice President Joyce Mujuru. This is the clearest indication that all she is doing in the provinces has one political objective, and that political objective is to remove the Vice President.
Once again, thanks for joining us, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk, and tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the First Lady's entrance into Zimbabwe's politics, and of course, there is talk now, there is serious factionalism in the ruling ZANU-PF party.
First Lady Grace Mugabe today concluded her final leg of provincial tours in Mashonaland East Province, continuing with her theme of attacking Vice President Joyce Mujuru.
Mrs. Mugabe is accusing some senior ZANU-PF officials of plotting to topple 90-year-old President Robert Mugabe. And she is saying, or she was also saying on this Meet the People tour, that some officials in the ruling party are actually working with some opposition elements to topple the president.
What do you think about this issue? If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077. 619-2077 and we'll call you back. That number again, 001-202-619-2077. You can also send us a message on WhatsApp, and our number is 1-202-465-0318. Ye kungakunjani kumfoni
onguka Gibbs hanzi chiri musakasaka chinozvinzwira tiri kuda kuti nhasi tinge tichitarisa nezvekupinda kwaamai Mugabe munyaya dzezvematongerwo enyika. Vapedza kumatunhu kwose vanga vachiita musangano. Ndofunga vanhu vanga vachivaona kutanga kuMashonaland West Province kuchinhoyuko vachinogumisira kuMashonaland East Province kumarondera asi paita mutauro pane mamashoko avanga vachitaura ikokoko. Ndozvatoda kubvunza kuti vanhu munozviona sei?
Yebo kambe Zulukani Ndaba uyayibeka ke lamhlanje ublessing ingxoxo yethu esilayo lapha emphakathini. Ye sikhuluma ukuthi ke bekulo kuyethelekelela izabelo okade kusenziwa ke ngunkosikazi Grace Mugabe. Siyakwazi ke ukuthi uqalise endaweni ezijeneyo wagcina ke lamhlanje eseMashonaland East emarondera lapho kudabuka khona ijaha leli engilalo khonapha. Ye sizwile ukuthi uthe khamba khonapho bekhuluma sibilo kunye okunengi okunye kwangikhona ukugoqela ukuthi uvice president uJoyce Mjulu kumele axolise umongameli. Amxolise ngoba kukhanyazani uthi wayefuna umgenqula. Ngaphandle kwalokho ke uthi kulezinto azenzayo ezingekho emthethweni. So ke waphinda futhi wakhuluma ukuthi nxa umntwana engazani kasahloniphe ekhaya uyaphoselwa khatshana lebhakede lakhe. So okuthiwa ibaby dumping khonokho. So uthi hayi kwamele kwenziwe nxa ukuthi kukhanya kuhlupha. Ye kodwa abaningi abanye bathi lokho akukhulumayo kwana kuzwakali. Babe khona abanye bethi uchaye kwazwela. So sifuna ukuzwa ngozulu uthini lapha blessing.
Of course, yesterday it was the Women's Forum, and
Yes.
One of the guests was Margaret Dongo. And, she says something interesting about politics in Zimbabwe. And this is the quote. She says, the nature of politics in Zimbabwe is such that if you go hunting and you fail to catch anything, the people you went hunting with come back holding you as the trophy. That's Dongo for you. I think
Very interesting, right? Very
interesting indeed. We have our first guest, that is Mr. Morris Ngwenya. Mr. Morris Ngwenya is a political analyst, and he's also a ZANU-PF activist. Mr. Ngwenya, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm doing great. How is Harare today?
Harare is fine. We received rains yesterday, so it's very fine.
That's good news indeed. Gibbs, you can fire away.
Mr. Ngwenya, I think you've been seeing what is happening in your party, and you are a political analyst as well. Can you tell us what is going on? Do people actually like what the First Lady is doing, in her provincial tours that ended today?
Yes, definitely. Perhaps very few people, especially those who don't like Fed or a Fed being called a Fed, or don't like it, but as you are very much aware that the coming in of the First Lady was specifically meant for that, to unify the party, to rebuild the party, to strengthen the party, and counsel or advise against any divisive elements within the party. Therefore, what she is doing from the onset, you can already see that she is carrying out the mandate that the women expect from her, even before she is appointed to the post that the women want her to do. So she's really doing a wonderful job of correcting or pointing out to any mistakes that are being done by some of the party leaders within ZANU-PF. This shows very much that ZANU-PF is a democratic party which is very much alive as compared to what many people or many critics would have said, that it's a party that rubber stamps whatever the decision is made by the president. But this shows that there's robust debate and there's criticism of each other in the ruling party.
But Mr. Ngwenya, the First Lady, as was advertised by the party members, it was said that she was going to bring unity. But many people are saying she's simply taking sides. Is this not a cause for concern?
Well, only her critics will say she's taking sides, but people within ZANU-PF know very well that she's not taking any side. She is merely out the mistakes being done by some people within leadership or leadership positions. But duty really, and what doing so far is really strengthening the party by giving caution to those who are trying to divide or who may seek to divide the party. As you know that there's Congress this year and there will be elections for the Central Committee. Therefore, some people want to campaign using divisive tactics. What she's simply doing is pretty much strengthening the party, and I can assure you that come by December Congress time, ZANU-PF will be more formidable, especially considering that this country has no opposition that is organized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngwenya. Do stay on the line. Gibbs?
Yeah, I think I'll read this statement because I'm hearing Mr. Ngwenya saying that the First Lady is actually unifying the party. So this is what the First Lady said yesterday. I hope I'm quoting her in context. Mashonaland Central is the province where a faction leader comes from, but soon we are going to baby dump your faction leader come Congress in December. People will soon know the meaning of the slogan down with Gamma Talks. The moment of truth has come for corrupt leaders, some of whom own diamond mines in this country. Those are the same people who go around denouncing the president and his wife's projects in Mazoe. If you are the faction leader, go to the president and ask for forgiveness. If the president does not dump you, we are personally going to dump you. Mr. Ngwenya, what do you think about those words?
Yes. I don't think there's anything contrary to what I said. If someone is leading a faction, that is something that is a sort of organization that is contrary to from the mainstream organization, which is the ZANU-PF as a whole. Yes, they are being warned not to do that, and anyone who did any wrong to the party or to the president is indeed being called upon from that statement to go and apologize to the president. So I don't see how that divides the party, because as you are aware, most of in fact, the majority of ZANU-PF supporters support the party because of its principles and ideology, not individuals. So there is no way you can call of dividing the party when one individual is being criticized. That individual, if anything happens to them, it's only that individual, not the party. So there is nothing contrary to what I said. She is unifying the party, because I can tell you that the majority support President Mugabe and support the party. So it's not about the individual being criticized.
But Mr. Ngwenya, obviously, to talk about factionalism, there should be more than one, isn't it? Why is it that they seem to be directed criticism only at the person of Vice President Joyce Mujuru? But everybody knows, I mean, it does not need a rocket scientist to tell us that there is another faction that is allegedly led by Justice Minister Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Well, I have heard so much about factions being led by VP Mjuru or by Comrade Mnangagwa or by whoever, but I hear you referring to two factions. From what I hear, there are several people, because these so-called factions, unfortunately, many people associate factionalism, that word, to ZANU-PF. But factionalism happens in any sphere of society, even in a family. Some children are more aligned to the mother than the father. So it's not about ZANU-PF really. Just to give from your example, from the example that you gave, I hear people saying Comrade Mnangagwa is leading a faction to become president. But the same people, we hear them criticizing him, saying he rigged elections on behalf of the president. Now, so how can someone who has presidential ambitions rig elections for someone else? It only
no,
shows
but Mr.
so much confusion.
Mr. Ngwenya, are you not mixing apples and oranges? He might have rigged the election, but with the intention of taking over from Mr. Mugabe, who is 90 years old now.
No, look at it from this way. ZANU-PF or President Mugabe can definitely not be compared to MDC. MDC, politically speaking, is a very weak party that anyone will be prepared to face instead of trying to face President Mugabe. So what I'm trying to say is those allegations are really meant to tarnish the people's images. That is why there are no names being mentioned here, but this is speculation that we find in society where people say so and so is leading such a faction. But we have the Politburo, we have the Central Committee, where if those so-called factions were formal organizations in the party, then we expect that those issues will be discussed openly in the Central Committee or in the faction. So this thing of saying so and so leads such a faction, to me, it's really about mudslinging, about criticizing whoever. But as far as I'm concerned, the factionalism that exists is just like the normal factions that exist in any part of society where people have preferences.
Thank you, Mr. Ngwenya. Please do stay on the line. And for those of you who are just joining us tonight on Studio 7 Live Talk, we are talking about the First Lady, Amai Grace Mugabe. She has now entered into politics. And as they say, politics is a contact sport. And of course, there are many people who are hailing her as the rising star in ZANU-PF. But others are saying she is actually dividing the party because she is known, according to them, and I quote, as a rhetoric bomb thrower. Gibbs.
Yabambe Zulukani ndaba nxa lifuna ukungena kuhlelo khona manje nasi nombolo 1-202-619-2077. Zaphinda futhi uyatshaya uthi 001-202-619-2077. Ungafuna kanye siyakufonela khona ngapho. Kwamanje ke blessing lo mnumzana uTshabalala. Baba Tshabalala kunjani eGoli? Tshabalala baba.
Ngiyaphila kunjani Dube?
Siphilile kunjani khonapho lapho khona baba?
Ngisaphila kumakhazanyana lana.
Yebo phela kulo mqando bijani?
Ngathi kuyaba nomoya izolo nje, angathi savunguzane nje, hayi kwashunqa intuli, kodwa hayi namhla kungconywana kuyabanda nje.
Lokho kuthiwa i-sandstorm kumbe into enjalo echaya iJoburg
kodwa lokho kukwenzeka nje kwaZulu, hayi la eGauteng nabo zange kwenzeka.
Siyakuzwa baba. Ungathini ke ngodaba lolu olukaNkosikazi Grace Mugabe?
Yazi bengeke ngabhala nje ku-WhatsApp lapho, yabona ukuthi nje izinto ezenzeke ekhaya lezi, yazi kube kuthiwe uzothi abantu sebelwisana izwa lisabuke useki abantu sebelwa bodwa, izo lezi inkulumo ngoba yabona abantu mabenezikhundla eziphezulu amelanga bakhulume bekhombana ngeminwe. Ake bakethi bakufunda ipolitiki kwamanye amazwe ukuthi zenziwa kanjani ukuze kungabi nomlilo ovuthayo, ngoba uma usuvutha kuba nzima ukubhula lowo mlilo. Abantu abakwazi uma bekhuluma izinto bakhuluma into ezakhayo, izwe liye phambili ngoba lezi inkulumo ligcwilisa phansi, izwe liya phansi, alithuthuki nokuthuthuka. Abantu sikhatheke ukuhlala thina emazweni ngoba uma into zenzeka kanje ngapha kufuneka ama-permit awalungi, kufanele sibuyele ekhaya. Siyobuyela sithini ngoba abantu belwa ngemlomo kanje, ekugcineni boyobambana ngamakhola.
So ke ubona ngazani njengoba ngezombangazwe lezi, nxa kungezombangazwe abantu akumelanga betshintshanise amazwi angane njalo, beyiphoselana aqatha kakhulu, kumele benze njani?
Kodwa phela ngoba abantu abanezikhundla eziphezulu njengomkaMugabe ekhuluma ngendlela akhuluma ngayo, laba abaphansi mase bezwe inkulumo ungathi uthuma abantu ukuthi lwanini, kodwa ekugcineni uyabe engasho ukuthi lwanini. Kodwa ke njengoba sokuthiwa kunama-factionalism la, kunabanye abasapota abaye, kunabanye abasapota abaye, mase ukuthi sebeqala ukuthi bayavukelana-ke sokuliwa, ugcina ungasayilawuli naleyo mpi, sowugcina sowuchitheka igazi ngento encane nje, ngokukhuluma nje ukuthi uzama ukuzikhombisa ukuthi unesibindi sokuthi utshele umuntu ukuthi wena uhlukanisa abantu, kodwa kungenjalo. Kanti kufanele ukhulume ngendlela nje umuntu omdala, ubhula umlilo, hayi ukuthi uvuthe ngamandla.
Pho manje ubona ngizani kuyaze kuphethe ngani khona kokulwisana okukhona?
Phela yabona ukuphetha kwakhona ukuthi ekugcineni nje kuzogcina abantu bebambana ngamakhola, kuliwe ngempela. Yabona kungasaliwa ngomlomo-ke njengenkukhu, kuyasokuliwa-ke ngezandla. So uyabona ukuthi into zixazululwe soke kwaliwa akusizi lutho ngoba kuzobe kushona abantu, kuchitheka isigazi okanye kuchithekela imizi, kanti kufanele ukuthi kukhulunywe ngoba uyabona ukuthi bathi ukuvikela kungcono kunokuthi wena welaphi isifo.
Kodwa sizwile ke umnumzana uMorris Ngwenya lapho khona olathi esixoxa laye ngakhona ukuthi kodwa konke yiko kuthiwa phela i-democratic process okwenzakala ebandleni leZANU-PF, kambe ubona ngazani kumele bakwenze njani njengoba kungazani yikho phela?
yebo ke idemocracy yabona ke ifanele ukuthi abantu abakhulume ngendlela abayithandayo ke kodwa ke anti ngeke ngabona oboshiwe ababoshiwe besibona bafuna ukuhlela umbhikisho angithi idemocracy lokade beyisho ukuthi umgama kehle esizeni sizobhikisha angithi idemocracy kodwa uboshiwe manje laba abantu abayakhuluma bekhululekile abaye bengakhululekile so angazi ukuthi idemocracy inabantu abakhethiweyo nabanye abanayo noma abanye abanayo angazi ke lapho mina
awuboni ke Jabalala siyabonga kakhulu uthe ungaphuka khona lapha eGauteng
lapha eGauteng ngi-Still endawo ethiwa Still kodwa nje hayi ikufuphi nje kancane neJobek
siyabonga kakhulu Mshengo sibonge kakhulu baba
okay nibe nentambamenhle
kulungile la ube lempela viki enhle baba
bebe ningifonela phela kanti kunini ngiyani WhatsApp ningifoneli nje nganginokuphawula ngeminyaka edlule nabe langilaxaza nje angazi nangone
hayi sizabona sibili phela antu yakwazi ukuthi umqalo wesiziba nguyongazani olenhlanhla enkulu so wena ungavela upangise sibili WhatsApp siyakufonela masinya
hayi namhlanje ngibe nayamaswazi njengoba ngingumswazi nje ngibe nayamaswazi ngapha umqalisizwe
antu yabona ke baba sibongela kakhulu Mshengo
Ngiyabonga Mthembu.
Yes, Bonga kakhulu Jabalala. What President Jabalala is saying is that, of course, people may say what is happening in ZANU-PF is part of the democratic process. But it says people holding top posts shouldn't fight openly like what the First Lady is doing. It says this is totally retrogressive. It doesn't support it at all. Because he says the country as it is now is actually suffering. There's nothing that is going on. And in South Africa, they're busy looking for work permits. And they're not getting them. So where is the country going?
Rikaitidzoke kuna vangwenya ndonya iri kutaurwa nevamwe kai yekuti zviri kutaurwa izvi namai Mugabe zvanga zvisingafaniri here kunotaurwa kumatara akaita sana Polity Bureau nana Central Committee kwete kubva vataura pajikerere.
Zvinogona kudaro asi First Lady havasi nhengo yePolity Bureau havasi nhengo yeCentral Committee tutarisira kuti vange vachipinda kaapa paCongress patiri kuenda apa saka kureva kuti apa ivo vari kusangana nemadzimai akavasarudza vari kuratidza madzimai kuti munhu wavari kusarudza uyu munhu akaita sei anogona kunovamirira here zvido zvavo uye tikatarisa muno muZimbabwe politics dzemuZimbabwe kunyanya dzemuZANU-PF madzimai ndo ane simba guru rinotonga munyaya dzepolitics dzemuZANU-PF saka zvavari kutoratidza izvi zvekuti vari kuratidza pachena kuti kupinda kwavo ndo kuchasimbisa bato nokuda kwokuti bato iri risimbe zvakafanana negoridhe parinogadzirwa paya kuti rinyatsoita goridhe rakachena pure gold panoshanda moto kupisa saka ndizvozvo zvavari kuita kutanga kushanda kwavari kuita.
Gibbs
nxa singabuya futhi kwenomzana ke Ngwenya kukhanya ngazani lapho umzulu Jabalala lesithi kodwa okwenzakalayo ungazani kubisela ilizwe emuva kambe ungathini ngakhona
umnumzana Jabalala ngiyahlonipha umbono wakhe kodwa owami umbono ngokuthi lokhu yikho ukuhambisa ilizwe emuva ngenxa yokuthi ungaphumelani egcekeni yikho ukwenza ukuthi abantu bafuthelane phakathi abanye sesibona nampa sebephuma besiyakhulumela phandle becabanga ukuthi phakathi kwebandla akuvunyelwa ukukhuluma iqiniso elakhaya nanku lapha uyasitshengisela umama ukubana hatshi ukwakha iphathi kutsho ukubana sikhululekile ebandleni leli sixoxozana angitsho phela ukwenzela ukuthi konke okufunwa nguZulu uqhubekele phambili manje nxa sicoli singaxoxozani kuzathi ukubana abanye ababe lembono ehlukileyo ababe befuna ukuxoxoza yibo abazaphuma besithi sebesiyabomba awabo amabandla ngakho ke lokhu ngokubona kwami kuqinisa sibili ngamandla amaningi kakhulu iZANU-PF ngokubona kwami kuminyaka emihlanu elandelayo akula ngitsho opposition ezathola isidi ngenxa yokuthi iZANU-PF lapha isithole amandla ngenxa yokubumba kakuhle lokho esikubona okwenziwa ngumama Mthemba nabanye bazamsekela ukwenzela ukuthi-ke ibandla leZANU-PF libe lingabantu abamqodo abantu abangenzi izinto ezisolisa ibandla ezithandwa ngabantu ezithandwa nguZulu yikho lapha sesibona phela ukuthi ukwenza kukamama lapha nalabo ababengamzwisisi ababengakwazi ukuthi ngumuntu onjani sebehle bazibonela sebehle bemncoma ngakho akumangalisi ukubana sibone abantu sebesithi kaphiwe ezinye izikhundla eziyaphambili.
Yes, I was Ngwenya. So what Mr. Ngwenya is saying is that you know, whatever the first lady is doing is democratic, because you don't need to go behind the scenes, you know, to express your opinion. So if you are saying it publicly, maybe many in ZANU-PF will follow suit. So he's happy about that kind of thing.
And
so
maybe let's just quickly introduce our second guest. That is Mr. Bernard Manyaza, a political analyst and also a war veteran. Mr. Manyaza, good evening. Mr. Manyaza? Mr. Manyaza, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, of course, we are talking about the Meet the People tours by First Lady Grace Mugabe. And of course, some are saying they respect what she is doing, and others are saying she has only brought or deepened the factionalism in ZANU-PF. What is your take on that, Mr. Manyaza?
Okay. Background to what was just said is that there is a clique in ZANU-PF which sort of branding my Mugabe as a politician. So they were on a marketing spree trying to promote her, but largely I think it has flopped. Because I've heard of fights at 2 occasions in Manicaland and today in
Marondera.
National and East. Yeah. That's one point. The other point is I remember there are members of the general staff who were members of the general staff in ZANU, that is from the ladies department. We used to call it Departamento Femenina. They are still alive. They are quite far senior to my Mugabe. Why they've been sidelined for historians to research on. But my suspicion is there are some people who are afraid of working with real war veterans. But then they will go for the soft targets to manipulate the soft targets to outmaneuver opponents. That kind of thing. And ZANU-PF as a political movement has stakeholders in war veterans. But up to today, there is not a single senior war veteran who is at the top echelon, except probably the lonely Rugari Gumbo, who has been with us since the days of the Chimrenga. And why these comrades have been sidelined is still a hot issue, which is why the party is now riddled with a lot of indiscipline. You're bordering on turning ZANU-PF into a counter-revolutionary movement, where opportunities have been allowed to ride roughshod, where the other stakeholders, the comrades, that is, and especially the women, your comrades, have been completely sidelined as if we did not have them. There are senior ladies there, comrades, who are far much senior than comrade Muchinguri. However, she got up. But I could mention on one occasion, I could have mentioned a lot of them, they are still available. And
Mr. Manyaza,
that you contributing.
Mr. Manyaza, we'll come back to you. Please do stay on the line, and also Mr. Ngwenya. Nemwe mterere wedu tina bamwe tete. I think tete ami rambaye muri parunare. Gibson nemwe mterere. Of course, for our radio listeners, we are streaming live. Go to www.voazimbabwe.com and press on live talk. This is Blessing Zulu.
And Kips Dube saying, stay tuned to Zimbabwe.
For those of you who are just joining us, good evening, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the First Lady, Grace Mugabe. She is being dubbed by some in the party as the rising star, and others are saying she is causing more friction in the ruling party. We want to hear from you. And our guests this evening, Gibbs, who do we have? Of course, Mr. Bernard Manyaza
and Mr. Morris Ngwenya, ZANU-PF activist and political analyst.
Now, Mr. Manyaza, you were talking about some very senior war veterans who have been sidelined by ZANU-PF. You can continue.
Yes, all I was saying is they are stakeholders in ZANU-PF. Women combatants who participated in the moving of material from Chivombo, Zambia, across the Zambians into Mozambique and into Zimbabwe. As early as 1972-73, they are still living. They can narrate the history of the struggle and articulate the objectives, the founding principles of that struggle, far, far better than what we are seeing now. And unfortunately, these are the people who have been sidelined. I can say for short, people are neglecting the struggle and rising onto occasions to grab power. But all I can say is this is going to destroy ZANU-PF. It's so unfortunate unless the stakeholders, including the women combatants, reclaim their positions in the organization. Less of that, this party will be hijacked forever. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Manyaza. Please do stay on the line. Tinemwe Mterere Gibbs, I think vatete makadi.
Makadi noyi.
Ndi munonzi tetani.
Ndiri maizimuto.
Maizimuto. Makadi maizimuto.
Ndinofara hangu makadi nenini.
Aiwa, isu tiripo zvedu. Muri kuona sei?
Nyaya yacho yakati omei. Maonero andinoita inini ndekuti hatingati president akashata ari right. Asi manje mapindire akuita mai mupolitics. Dai zvanga aifa hake pachigaro. Dai apinda achiona vanhu vari kushaisha wacho iwawawo. Ndofunga zvanga zvakanaka kuti awatore ataure nawo pachihwande wari wega, kwete kubva awapa breka. So nokuti vanhu vakutoziva kuti ndinhingira nhingo vari kutaurwawo. Zvingazoita here manje izvo? Handioni zvizobuda chiono chakanaka dai. Ende zvichaita kuti ruvengo ruwepo kana kuti wabva washama kuparadzana maningi.
Pane congress iri kuitwa muna Zvitai. Munoona ichikwanisa kupedza here matambudziko ari kubatwa?
Haapedzi vawa. Haamboperi, vanotowedzera. Kutowedzera kwavari kutoita uko. Nekuti kana munhu uchitaura nevanhu taura navo zvakanaka. Zvino ndandichiteerera zvangu paanga achitaura nhasi. Wanga achitaura naye wacho kana ndainga ndiri nini ndinobva ndanyaraka pakati peruzhinji rwevanhu. Saka matauriro acho hameno, zvimwe iye ndiwo zvaaona zvakakodzera, asi haana. Handioni zvakanaka ini.
Zviri kunzika havasi kuda kurova imbwa vakaviga mupini.
Aiwa, pakusada kurova imbwa vakaviga mupini, iwonga ndiwo vanoti hatidi kubudisa mumhepo zvinhu zvetiri kuita mupati medu. Zvawainyatse kuenda kawanotaurirana nawo pachihwande pavo wega. Kunga azoramba manje ndo kuchizomubudisa hawo.
Tanga chitoverenga mubepanhau reHerald vamwe vari kune chimwe chikwata vachiti aiwa ngavabva vatosiya basa vasati vamboenda kucongress. Munoona zvakakodzera here kuti mai mujuru vasiye basa?
Asiye basa nemhaka yei?
Hanzi nyaya dzehori nekukonzera bowa mubato.
Asingaiti hori ndiani. Hapana munhu asina hori kana iye wacho anga achipera chikwakwamata. Haana. aiwa zvinonetsa kuti munhu abvise chinhoi chiri muziso reumwe iye sake ainachowo hazviiti
asi Mazimuto zvino nyaya inoperera kupi?
nyaya iyi kana bhaibheri rinotaura kuti zvinonetsa kuti munhu anofamba aruramise nhano dzake. Saka zvakutoda kuti Mwari apindire munyaya iyi, kwete munhu haangachambozvigoni beshe.
Zvanetsa.
Ndati
kuvanhu zvinganetsa zvakona zvakona nganga murapwa achida.
Zvakona nganga murapwa achida, vanhu vakamboedza nepese pavanogona zvakona kukona chaiko chaiko.
Aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru Mazimuto nekupinda muchirongwa chedu munaramba muchifona.
Alright, mazita.
Tatenda zvikuru. Of course, Mazimuto, very politically astute. She's saying that, now we need divine intervention because as human beings, we cannot solve this issue. And she also says that it was better for Amai Mugabe to talk to the vice president in private, not to try and expose her. And then, of course, on the issue of corruption, she said all of them are corrupt. Even the First Lady is approaching this subject with dirty hands. So she cannot point at the Vice President and say you are corrupt because the whole system is corrupt.
Yeah, uyayifaka kuhle ke blessing lapho simzwile lapho mama ekhuluma esithi bonke abakhuluma ngokuthi abantu laba ongazani kungcolile labo bangcolile. So ke uphinde njalo wakhuluma ukuthi okwenzakala khona kulakho ukuthi ibandla leli kulinyikinye sibilo kwamagama. So ke ngingakayicatshana ke blessing ngifuna ukuthi ngitranslate lokho kade kukhulunywa umnumzana uBernard Manyatsa uzula kuzwe kuhle sibili. Lapho umnumzana Manyatsa besithi ama-war veterans amanengi abalwa impi yenkululeko kabakho phezulu kompana ku-ZANU-PF kukhanya babekwa eceleni ongani ukukhona ngokutsho kwakhe umnumzana uRugari Gumbo siyakwazi uyisikhulumeli sebandla le-ZANU-PF uphinde njalo wathi nxa lokhu kungalungiswanga kulakho ukuthi kubhidlize ibandla le-ZANU-PF so ke wasukhuluma ke lo mama lapho te ngcono kungena iBhayibheli so bashaya umthandazo mfowethu ngani kunjalo sizwe ke Khumalo ukuthi uthini ngodaba lolu. Baba Khumalo kunjani ecingweni khonapho?
Hayi mphilile.
Banjani abantu bakho?
Hayi baphilile singasile yina khona ngafu.
Hayi siphilile Khumalo. Ungaphoka khona khona bakhumzi.
Lapha ngiseMidrand eGauteng.
Kuthi neMidrand.
Hayi khona konje sike sahlangana nomoya hayi kade sokungcola.
eMidrand kulapho kuthiwa abantu bangakusearcha bakukhangelisa phansi bakukhuhluza imali wezikwabeni. Yikho?
Bakuthwala inyawo ziye phezulu ikhanda phansi into ziwa zodwa ke.
Madoda. Hayi kuzimanga. So ke hayi siyakuzwa ke mnumzana Khumalo. Akuthi ukuthi wena ulibona njani udaba lo?
Indaba leyi ingaba lula. Uyabona indaba leyi lapho esukele khona. Ikufa okwenzela umka mamalo uRex uSolomon yabona. Ukufa kwakhe lokhana ukuthi vele abantu laba besenza ipave way forward ukuthi babone ukuthi phambilini bafuna ukwenza njani ngoba iyo biyinsika lapha. Ikanti-ke nathi sikukhangela ukufa kwababalwana sakuthatha ongazani umama la ekazangabe lo mlando kakhulu ngomyeni wakhe singazokwa kusenhlizweni yakhe. Kodwa-ke manje kade singayikuthi laye wayekulolu hlangothi kade sengunu manje sebemembula ngamandla manje sebemkhipha izigqoko sesale ngunu kokweqiniso ke manje ngoba indaba ukuthi uzoko lukhona njengoba nakukhulunywa ukuthi imabambo ye-EMDC yasungulwa khona undoda lo kutshona ubengazani uyawelelana even nama-opposition so umama bamsukele kudala ngayibeke bamsondeze eduze bathi banzwenkisa indoda kade ukuthi umuntu ongumfazi afunde asitsho ukuthi unesandla kodwa sitsho ukuthi nxa ekubona kuyinto nje elungileyo kumbe kusenzeka ngesikhathi soneso so nxa sikhangele-ke lapho kuyakhona izano hayi mina ngokubona kwami sibili abakuzeleyo lokho hayi akuyi kuphela lokho ngoba bakhona vele abezwa ubuhlungu ngaphandle kwalokhu uqondana sebekwenzile omama laba
bakhona vele abafuthelwa ngezikhundla lezi ababelokhu bekhangela ukutshela umbuso abangayisilayo. Nxa ngikuphendla kahle kahle uzokufumanisa ukuthi lo muntu ophuma kulelo bandla eqembuke esiyeceleni abanye abantu uyahlephuna impela ba. Ngoba siyakubona nalapho esikhona kulalo uJahumalema lo uhlephunile sibili. Uhlephunile. So isibonelo esisukuthi lo phuma sibili uyahlephuna kungaba yikuhlephuka kwayo sibili ezanokwanele bengadelela nje ngoba uma ukhangela i-background kamama lo ngokutsho kwayizani sithi bona leli lizwe libuswa ngamaqhawe kanti ube liqhawe ngokuthathwa kuphela ngupresident ukwaba liqhawe ngaphi ngoba silandela imbali yabo njengabaye bekutsho be-opposa abanye lo ube liqhawe kuphi.
Siyakuzwa sibili kakhulu ke Khumalo ye. So ke sibongile ukuthi ungenile lamhlahlelweni uhlala uphenduka phela siyakuzwa sibili uyabeka mnumzana.
Hayi ngihlala ngikhona kodwa ukuthi nje kafiqeki kwesinye isikhathi ka.
Yebo.
Udube kumbe umqande lo?
Hayi ngudube ngigibs dube.
Hayi kuhle Temple Themba ofiqeki kwesinye isikhathi ngiyazama lapha kube inkani lapha ukuthi udayisiyanda abantu lathi sifisa ukuphosa amazwi lapha.
Anti system ngungangazwe ngiyabe ngikubeka kuhle.
Istemo yahlanga umntungwa baba
awuboni ke mntungwa wamantungwa sibongele kakhulu mnumzana.
Hayi kuhle Mthembu hayi kudilika kwezinto bathi ungapheli okuyahlola abadala ngoba lokho asebekukhombana bodwa baye bengakwenzi lokhu kwangavele kuke kwenzeka ungakukhangela emuva laphana kube kungazani umnanka gumi yedwa kala umdala umiyedwa umjuru yedwa khathesi umdala lo mnanka kwasokuyinto yinye uJonathan Moyo kuke kwathiwa kuphoswa amabala kwathi ufuna ukuthela igama top khathesi anti yakubona okuyinto kwangikhona so ukuthi kukhona abanye phakathi lapha abayingxenye kalumama noma bezithulele ayikuhlephuka kwayo lo.
Hayi siyakuzwa ke mntungwa wamantungwa hayi sibongela kakhulu ungadinela kusasa phela.
Hayi kukahle lilale nanko kanje ngapho kusile.
Lapha kusile yena nilale kahle khona ngapha.
Hayi kulungile siyabonga.
Hayi sibongela kakhulu ke Khumalo. What Mr. Khumalo is saying, he has got so many issues here. He says, one, this is unprecedented in ZANU-PF, what is happening right now. And secondly, he says, perhaps the death of the late General Solomon Muchuru is causing a lot of problems for the vice president, that is Vice President Joyce Muchuru. So he's saying she has no one to defend her right now. She's just alone, according to him. And he says, at the end of the day, what is problematic is that this ZANU-PF fight is here to stay. Even if something happens, these people are going to fight for a long, long time. And he says maybe, if the vice president decides to leave, she may take a chunk out of ZANU-PF and form a very formidable party like Julius Malema in South Africa. So those are some of the issues that he actually raised.
Yeah, we are being joined by our third analyst, that is a political analyst, Blessing Vava. Mr. Vava, good evening.
Good evening, Blessing. How are you?
I'm doing great. And your take on these factional fights in ZANU-PF?
Well, it's quite interesting what is happening in ZANU-PF now. But it is something that was going to come anyway because of President Mugabe's failure for the past 34 years to open the succession debate among SD's membership in ZANU-PF. And now what we are now seeing desperation coming through from especially his wife, the first lady, because they now know that President Mugabe is now too old, and also the health concerns of the president, and we are not very much sure what's really happening because the president has been very quiet of late. We haven't been seeing him in the media, we haven't been seeing on television. The last time that we saw him speaking, it was about 2 weeks ago. So this is showing the desperation also coming from the first family that President Mugabe now has realized probably that he can't live forever, and also that at one point he will die, or at one point he has to leave office, and now he's now trying to prop up his wife to be somewhere in the equivalent of the ZANU-PF leadership, so that they protect the interests of the first family and also the business interests of the first family.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vava. Gibbs, you have something on Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook lako ungwenya la samfako.
Okay.
Yeah, kodwa sikaseke Facebook. On Facebook, Blessing, we've got so many messages. I think I've got about 7 pages here, of reactions from the public. So one of them is at Mom Lilo, who says, Kiki. 2014 is the year for history to be made. This is too small what we are looking at right now. The big thing is coming, according to Mr. Mlilo. And then we've got Francis, who says, ZANU-PF is full of power-hungry leaders. Then we've got SS, who says, sesikhathele ngalo mama le ZANU-PF yakhe esibulele ilizwe. So SS is saying, people are sick and tired of ZANU-PF, which has actually destroyed Zimbabwe. Then we've got DK, who says, what history is Mr. Atmo talking about? But maybe history will be made. Then I've got Jonah, who writes, today I got shocked hearing the First Lady say the MDC and Mavambo Kusile were formed in Mrs. Joyce Mjuru's house. I think she is too desperate for a position. Let's wait there. Let's go to Morris ngesintu. Ngithi baba Ngwenya. Lokhu khona ecingweni. Baba Ngwenya, Mr. Morris Ngwenya ukhona? Yeah, lapho uzwile abantu bakhuluma sibili baba Morris. Abaye bakhuluma ukuthi ukubhubha kuka Solomon Mjuru iko kwenza ukuthi umama uMrs Mjuru esale ngazani kasela umuntu ongamlwela. Kube sokubuya labanye abathi iZANU-PF ilakho ukuthi ibhidlike idabuke ngaphakathi ngenxa yokuxokozela lokho. Akuphendula uZulu baba.
Yes, siyabaza sihlala sibeza abantu abafisa ukuthi iZANU-PF ibhidlike. Ungavele kwenzakala into encane kuphela iZANU-PF sizabhidlika abantu bezikhohlisa nje. Laba bathi ke umama uMjuru ngenxa ukuthi ubaba kasekho uselumuntu okumlwela asazi ukuthi bakhuluma kuziphi izimpi lapha abakhangela ubana alwelwe khona ngumkakhe, kodwa singakhangela umama uMjuru libandla lilunga leZANU-PF ngu-vice president njalo ngunobhala wesibili oweZANU-PF. Lokho kulwelwa lokho hathi angiboni ukuthi kulempi lapho azadinga ubana alwelwe ngakhe. Kasuye yedwa umfelokazi baningi kakhulu, ngakho-ke angikwazi ukuthi bazama ukuthi nxa besitsho njalo, kodwa lokho ukuthi iZANU-PF yabhidlizeka ngalesi sikhathi hathi. Kodwa into enhle engifuna ukuthi ngikhombise abantu ukuthi bayibone ukuthi u-First Lady uza ngedlabuzane ku-politics, ku-democracy. Yikho sibili okhangelela ngabantu abaningi ukubana nxa kulokucotozana abantu laba befuna ukuthi beze ubana inkokheli zabo zithini ngembono yabo kumbe ngezifiso zabo.
So what Mr. Ngwenya is saying in brief, he's saying ZANU-PF is here to stay. People can say anything that they want, but the party will still remain intact. So he says the problem with Zimbabwe is with any blow of some kind of wind, they always say, oh, ZANU-PF is just going, but it's there, according to him. And he says there is no reason why people should say Mrs. Mjuru should have a person who can fight for her rights. He says the lady is a fighter on her own, so she can stand the ground even if it's too hot. Then finally he was saying that the First Lady is in ZANU-PF right now to convey a certain message, and the message is pure democracy. That's it.
Whether this is democracy or not, we'll see. Only time will tell. But some analysts, of course, Gibbs are saying there's an African saying that goes like, if a leopard wants to eat its children, it will accuse them of smelling like goats. Could this be what is happening with Vice President Joyce Mujuru? We really don't know. We are just outsiders. And of course, they say if you stay close to a cemetery, you cannot mourn for everyone.
And we're here,
just watch.
Yes. And we're here literally to facilitate some discussion.
Indeed.
And people can come and say what they want.
Yes.
As long as it is open, frank, and up to the point.
Indeed. We take our popcorn and take the front row seats and sit and watch as the drama unfolds.
Yes.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about the ZANU-PF politics, of course, with the entrance of the First Lady, Mai Grace Mugabe. And our guest this evening, we have Mr. Bernard Manyaza, a respected war veteran. We also have Mr. Morris Ngwenya, a political analyst and ZANU-PF activist. And Blessing Vava, my namesake, he is also a political analyst. Regaitende kuna Vamanyaza, tisati tatora mwemutereri wedare parunare. Vamanyaza, tichitarisa zviri kuitika izvi, Vangwenya vari kuti ivo ZANU-PF yaparara zviroto.
Nyaya iri pahize kuti ZANU-PF yaparara nekuti mai ava vari kujambira kumatepa achildren's. ZANU-PF inokwanisa kusara iripo historically inemu iripo, asi zvayanga iri chimiro chayo chayanga iri chacho kuti i-liberation movement chinenge chochipera manje, because hakuna party ye-liberation movement isina continuity yokuti vakamboita ma-deserters ndevanenge vazoita ma-champions nemachoestruggle voitwa sideline votetwa forgotten about completely. So kunonzi hakuna at one stage ndakamboti muno munyika makafanana makamboita sei munoshayikwa vanonzi madistrict administrator kana vanonzi vana magavana kunzi maprovincial minister kuti kuma veterans hakuna vanhu vanokwanisa kuita mabasa iwaya, but vanhu vandinongoona varipo izvezvi vamwe vacho ukaona background dzavo vanenge vachimbaimbawo maschool headmaster, that kind of thing. Mawo veteran vaiti masectorial commander, maprovincial commander vaitotungamira ari maprovince zvichitonetsa, vanongoitwa sideline kusvika pari nhasi sei. Crisis ndeyazodisisa apa kuti voita sevaakushaya manje vanhu vanochishandira musangano, vofunga kuti mawo veterans vaya vakatsamwa havachati vaita give up, havana kuita give up. Izvezvi vakutonyatsotoona kuti musangano uya wakuitwa padivi maindi nezvaakuitika izvi, nekuti munhu haangade kuti avake dynasty tichitoona kudai. Kutoshungurudza mawo veterans akaparticipata uko, kutonyatsoshungurudza nyaya chaiko kuti kana macomrades echikadzi variko vandataura paya nechirungu kuti vari senior vakacontributa vakasvika zvikoro panzira, nanhasi vamwe vachi kuti vachiri kutsvagura kuti vaite zvikoro vagowana madigiri ari kuwanikwa nyore nyore navamwe aya, vagonyararwa ndezvazvo completely kuti kana maachellens imomomo havamo, vakangonyuka ndevakazonyuka ndo vakutoita 7 izvo zvinotogumbura state.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manyaza. Of course, what Mr. Manyaza is saying that is, what pains him most as a war veteran is that war veterans have been sidelined by ZANU-PF, which claims to be a revolutionary party. He's not seeing them anywhere. And he's saying that those who deserted the war are the ones who are in charge. The real comrades have been deserted. So that is his bone of contention. Tina va magazine mwemutereri wedu kuBotswana makadi.
Tiripo madiwo.
Aiwa isu tiripo. Muri kuona sei bata murefu bata mfupi iri kuitika muZANU-PF?
Apa vakaoma ndakabva kumushamusi Sunday. Saka ini ndiri secretary wopanyakasikana district, but maonero andakaitanga mafaction acho ka kwari kuenda kumawere kuti ZANU-PF chaiye kutoenda kunowa. Nokuda kwekuti vanhu vari kuita zvemafaction izvo havachateedzeri mastructures eZANU-PF. Vakungoita uyu abva kwake uyu abva kwake, because MP wokwaNembudziya wacho akangobvawo kwaakabva wakauya akapinda tosvikudza nomapindiro acho. But kana vakapinda pamusangano wacho kuti vataure zvedevelopment havataure zvedevelopment, vari kungotsoropodzana, uyu wakaita zvakati uyu akaita zvakati, mumwe akuti mai vaye vakabva ndevebhuka haramu wati vachingotsoropodzana. Saka development yacho tichazoiwana kupi?
Yeah. Saka pogadziriswa sei apa vamagazini dambudziko riri mubato iri?
aiwa dambudziko riri mupato ngavarege mukuru aripo apoinde munhu waanoda aite zvaanoda nekuti mukuru uchipo haasati afa kweve vanomanyirei kuda kutora ushe hwavasina kupuwa kana hwavasingazivi ngavainde kukongresi vanogadzirisa zvinofana kuitwa munhu aripo upoinda zvaanoita kana kuti iye ndiye ane kodzero dzaanoziva kuti anoda kutaura otaura vanhu voita forward ndo maonero angu ini.
Aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru mukoma wangu nekupinda muchirongwa chedu.
Ndinonzi vamagadzire noti
vamagadzire. Okay, vamagadzire.
Seiko magadzire.
Okay, aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru vamagadzire nekupinda muchirongwa chedu.
Ndozvikudza.
Tinotenda zvikuru. Of course, what Mr. Magadzire is saying is he is a member of ZANU-PF and he's got a position. But he's saying that there are no issues of development being discussed these days. People are just fighting each other because of this factionalism. And he's saying that Mr. Mugabe, it is incumbent upon him to appoint a successor, so that this clowning will not continue to go on and on. And of course, he's also saying that the Congress must be used to address some of the political problems that are in his beloved ZANU-PF at the moment.
Mr. Vava, what's your reaction to that? The president appointing a successor. Is that possible with some of the words that are being used by some politicians like Kamatoks, Weevils, all those kind of things? Is it possible for him to appoint a successor?
Well. One thing that the people of Zimbabwe must understand is that the culture that has been bred by President Mugabe is that of him alone and no one else. And for us to move forward, and for ZANU-PF to move forward, it is only President Mugabe that still holds that power to anoint a successor and to say, this person is going to be in charge after me. If President Mugabe dies today before doing that, I can tell you that ZANU-PF is going to be plunged into chaos. And both factions, both the alleged Mujuru faction and the Mnangagwa faction, are fully aware of that. And if you have noticed that of late, that Jonathan Moyo, who also alleged to be Mnangagwa apologist, Xavier Kasukwere and Patrick Joao, they have really strategically positioned themselves to be on the side of the first family, especially following the rallies of the first lady, Grace Mugabe. It's all in mind that President Mugabe, at some point, he will be leaving office, and probably is going to die anytime soon. It's just an assumption. But what they are doing, they know very well that President Mugabe is still an important factor in his ZANU-PF succession. This is why these comrades have been attending the first ladies rallies. But it's so sad, really, that the succession is now. The succession of ZANU-PF and succession of whoever is going to be in charge of the country from now until 2018. The new constitution says that the party that is there, that is in charge now, that's probably the party that's going to produce a president in case anything happens to President Mugabe between now and 2018 before we go for an election. So it's more about fighting for positions, strategically positioning both factions, the Mujuru faction and the Mnangagwa faction. But for now, I think the Mnangagwa faction is strategically positioning itself to succeed President Robert Mugabe.
Thank you, Mr. Vava. Different views there coming from our panelists, Gibbs. And from our callers, some are saying ZANU-PF is dead. Yeah. And whatever you try to do now is like applying lipstick to a frog or applying perfume to a corpse. But those who are in support of the ruling party are saying, well, there are people who are just envious because they are outside. You know the saying. A man who marries a beautiful wife and a farmer who plants corn by the roadside both face the same problem. You see? That's what they are saying.
And now, where's the army in all this? I think we have to exploit that kind of question.
Indeed. Who are they backing the so-called securocrats? But of course, they've said they are not going to enter into party politics. Of course, unfortunately, time is not our best ally and we have to end it here. We want to thank our guests this evening. We had political analyst Bernard Manyaza, a war veteran, then political analyst Blessing Vava, and last but not least, Maurice Ngwenya, a ZANU-PF activist and also a political analyst. And signing off, this is yours truly, Blessing Zulu. Have a blessed weekend.
And I'm Kips Dube. Good night.